Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and first and foremost, Happy New Year! It's official. It's 2025. We made it. We're still alive for now. It is just January 1st, so we'll see. But I did a whole series of videos at the end of 2024, kind of recapping what my favorite movies, my favorite TV shows in horror, some movies that I wish I liked more. There's a whole list of those. I was kind of done with looking back, and for this video, it's New Year's Day, and it's tradition that I want to look forward. So, today I'm counting down my 10 most anticipated horror movies of 2025. These are the movies that obviously I haven't seen them yet, so I'm kind of basing them on my excitement. They're not ranked in any particular order other than their release date. It's not like the one at the end is the one I'm most looking forward to. It's literally just based on I'm going in order of when they're coming out. Some are coming out very, very soon, and you'll see reviews of them on this channel. And some you won't see probably till the end of the year. But I'm really looking forward to 2025. We have a lot of really good horror movies coming out, and I've got a lot of really cool stuff for the channel. So just stay tuned, and let's jump right in. Wolfman. I'm seeing this in like a week and a half, and I cannot wait. If it is half as good as what Lee Wanell did with The Invisible Man, I'll be satisfied. He famously took a property that kind of felt like there was nothing you could do with it at this point. How do you make The Invisible Man scary again? You make him the villain. How do you make the Wolfman scary again based on the trailers? You kind of bring it back to its roots of it's almost like an illness, an affliction, a disease, something that you bring the body horror into it and the inherent tragedy in the person being transformed. Now, granted, we've had a lot more werewolf movies than Invisible Man movies, and I feel like the gold standard at this point is probably American Werewolf in London or The Howling for you Joe Dante fans. I like it. American Werewolf's a little bit better, but I'm not here to argue that. I'm just here to express my excitement for Wolfman. I think if anyone can do it justice, it's Lee Wanell. He has a great track record of just taking stories and kind of refreshing them and making them interesting for a new audience. So I'm very, very excited to see what he has in store for that. Scream Boat. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Didn't we already get the Mousetrap last year? Oh, sorry. It was Mickey's Mousetrap, and then it was renamed the Mousetrap because they didn't want to get sued, even though it was public domain. Yes, I know all that, and I know that having one of these, public domain, low hanging fruit slasher movies on here feels like a bit of a cop out, and it feels really cheap. The difference with this, I think the thing that's going to separate this from the Mousetrap, and even a little bit from Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which I liked the second one, didn't like the first one, is the team behind it. It's the creative team behind Terrifier. It's the same production team. It's the same crew. It's a lot of the same people. It's David Howard Thornton as, well, I don't know if we're allowed to call him Mickey, but just the slasher villain who looks like a mouse on the Screamboat. And I like that it's not just going for like the cheap, this is a Mickey Mouse horror movie. It feels like it's actually trying to be a adaptation of Steamboat Willie, which is the IP that is technically public domain. Yes, I know this could end up being like the mean one, but I really hope that it's closer to Terrifier. Time will tell. Presence. This one's got me for two reasons. One, Steven Soderbergh, I think, is a really, really talented director. I was a huge fan of the Ocean movies. Loved Contagion during the initial quarantine when COVID first started. I watched Contagion right when it all began, and it actually helped me cope through it, which is, I don't know what that says about me, but it did. So for him to take on like a horror thriller like this is really cool. And secondly, I love the premise. I love kind of, flipping things on their subverting expectation and trying to do something new and different. I think that In a Violent Nature kind of did that with the slasher, where we saw from the point of view of the killer. And I love the concept of doing it from the point of view of some sort of like spiritual demonic entity. I think because of the nature of it, because it's a spirit, there's a bit more voyeurism to it. There's a bit more that the spirit can be there and they don't see him. The way that, like, In a Violent Nature, obviously the killer had to be far back enough that people didn't see him. But here, you don't really have that problem. I'm also really, really intrigued because it's not all that different from the premise of a novel I wrote 10 years ago. Yes, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Check out my novel Veritas. I published it in 2015. Its 10th anniversary is coming up later in 2025, and it's basically the story of demonic possession from the perspective of the demon. Now, in here, the demon is a character, and he gets charged by the devil. He's like, "You're too lazy. You need to go possess somebody," and we kind of run from there. So not at all, based from what I've seen in the trailer, not at all the same execution, but just the basic premise reminded me of it, and I'd be interested to see someone else's take on that similar presence. Companion. So here's the thing. I know nothing about this movie. I don't want to know anything about this movie. All I know is the trailer's really weird. It's got like the girl with her hand over the fire. It's got like disturbing imagery. And everyone I've heard from about it is like, oh my God, you got to check out Companion. It's so, and they all kind of say the same thing, go in blind. And I love that just it has the endless possibilities. It's just a movie that I keep hearing is good, looks intriguing, and I know nothing about it, and I like that I know nothing about it. The Monkey. The best thing about the marketing is that it's just the three names. It's like Osgood Perkins, the director of Longlegs, based on a story by Stephen King, produced by James Wan. I mean, it's one hell of a trifecta, and I think we're all familiar enough, or at least I am. I read it in middle school with The Monkey's Paw. It seems like it's at least something of a subversion of that. I do intend to read the original Stephen King story before I go see the movie, so I'm definitely going to check that out. But just those three names, yes, I know it could very easily go the other way. I know that, like, the fact that it's based on a Stephen King story, there's a lot of good King adaptations and there's a lot of not good ones. What really sells me on it, it's Osgood Perkins, the director. Because Longlegs was famously my second favorite movie of 2024. I'll put a link to that list in the description. It doesn't matter what his next project would have been. It could have been anything, and I would have been right there checking it out. The fact that it is a Stephen King adaptation with James Wan producing kind of just feels like a bonus. Sinners. An original horror movie. I'm so tired of you get these really good indie directors, like a Ryan Coogler. I know he did Fruitvale Station, and then shortly after that, he was tagged. He did Creed, he did Black Panther, which were both really, really good. But I hate how Hollywood has this way of taking these up and coming indie directors and then just giving them IPs to do reboots of. I love that it's an original movie. It looks interesting. I've heard it has something to do with vampires. It feels like maybe if we're not going to get Blade, ever again, this is maybe the next best thing to it, and maybe it'll be better than it because it's not tied to the baggage of an existing franchise or IP. It just looks like a really interesting, really tense, really visceral movie that I'm genuinely excited to check out. 28 years later. It's been almost 28 years. It's actually this year marks 23 years since the original 28 Days Later. And I know we had to skip months, but if this is what we're getting as a result, I'm all for it. Love 28 Days Later. 28 weeks, I have mixed feelings on. And I'm still not sure if this will directly follow the events of 28 weeks because that's owned by Fox and this is owned by Sony. Either way, I'm in for the sole reason that you got Alex Garland writing, you got Danny Boyle directing again, you've got Cillian Murphy. I don't know what kind of role he's playing, and you've got Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's on kind of a high point right now. I know a lot of people didn't like Craven. I was one of the few people who did, but he's amazing in Nosferatu. I've been a fan of him since Kick Ass, and I'm really really excited to see where they go with this. You have I know I said earlier in a previous video when I was talking about A Quiet Place Day One that I like seeing society fall apart. And that's true. This kind of represents the other extreme, though, where 28 Days Later showed us a world that, like, recently went to hell. And I love the concept of, like, this world that, no, it's been nearly 3 decades. Anyone under 30 either wasn't born or doesn't remember what the world was like before. There's endless possibilities here. The fact that they shot it on an iPhone is kind of amazing and intriguing, and I think gives it that gritty feel that the original 28 Days Later had. And oh my God, the trailer with that Rudyard Kipling poem about the boots. moving up and down.
Moving up and down again. That's all the stars in the war.
I must have watched it 100 times. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but there's something hypnotic about it, and I'm not going to be able to get it out of my head until I see this movie in the summer. Conjuring, Last Rites. I know, it's a fourth installment in a cinematic universe that has some hits, but has some misses. I know, objectively, I feel like another movie should be here, but personally, I love the Conjuring movies. I met Lorraine Warren back when she was still alive and when she was still running tours of her house. I attended one of the last ones she did, now almost 12 years ago. So I have a special fondness for the Conjuring movies. I've read all their books, and I keep, every time we would get like a new Annabelle movie or like a new Nun movie or like Curse of La Llorona, I was like, why can't we just get another Conjuring movie? Why can't we just get another Conjuring movie? That being said, I wasn't crazy about the last one, The Devil Made Me Do It, only because that's a really interesting case, and I feel like they focused on the wrong part of it. I don't know what this next movie's about. I don't know what case it's based on. I know there's plenty of other cases I've read about in their books that would make really good movies, and I'm hoping at least one of them gets to be it. Either way, I'm in for this, and it's supposed to be the last one in the franchise, or at least the last one in the Conjuring series, because let's face it, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, it's been over a decade since they did the first one. They're not going to want to do this forever, so I'm in for one last ride. The Bride. Huge disclaimer, yes, I know there's another movie based on Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, coming out this same in 2025. And this one is kind of, if we're going to do a bit of a cop out, I'm kind of counting both of them because I'm very interested and curious and excited to see both of them. The reason why I give The Bride a little bit of an edge, at least in terms of like my anticipation, is I have no doubt that Del Toro will direct a visually stunning, creatively beautiful, haunting, dark fantasy fairy tale that is the story of Frankenstein. I have no doubt it'll be great. I wish I could see it in a theater and it wasn't coming out on Netflix, but that's a different story. The Bride just feels like I have no clue what they're doing with it. I know that people are comparing, Christian Bale's as Frankenstein's monster. They're saying, "Oh, he looks like Jared Leto's Joker. He looks like Bill Skarsgård, Eric Draven." I hear all that. I've seen the pictures. It looks odd. You know what, though? It's either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. And either way, I know I will have some major thoughts on it. I know that I will do a video on it that will be very polarizing. And I have a feeling people are either gonna love the movie or they're gonna just hate it. And I'm excited and curious to see which way it goes. And finally, Saw 11. Or Saw XI, whatever you want to call it. This is another one that, again, I maybe I should have like another original horror movie in this spot instead of this one, but I can't put my personal biases aside. I love the Saw movies. It's probably tied with Chucky as like my all-time favorite horror franchise. I was obsessed with them ever since I was in high school. One year for Christmas, I got Amanda from Saw. Shawnee Smith. I got Shawnee Smith to do a cameo for my wife. When we were first dating, I showed my wife, at the time there were only the first 7 Saw movies. I showed her the first one and she loved it so much. She's like, we have to watch the other 6 of them before the end of the weekend. And that's when I knew I was going to marry her, and I did. So obviously I'm really excited to see where they go with this, but it's not just because it's Saw. It's because of what they did with Saw 10. It completely blew me away. It made John Kramer really sympathetic. It made him the protagonist. It gave us a villain that we could root against with John Kramer. It did so many really interesting things, and I hope it continues to do that and doesn't overstay its welcome. There's a much bigger risk here that it does, but I'm going to go in with an open mind. I'm going to go in with eager anticipation and hope that it's good. And that's it. These are the 10 movies that I am most excited for, most looking forward to in 2025. Horror movies, I should say. Honorable mention, the movie I'm probably most excited for is James Gunn's Superman. But this is a horror list, but just had to put that there. Let me know in the comments what horror movies or movies in general are you looking forward to in 2025 now that the new year is upon us. Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up like that MCU Blade movie never actually getting made. And as always, every day is Halloween.